It was an ordinary evening when the sky over Washington, D.C. lit up with an eerie green glow. The world held its breath as massive alien ships, sleek in silver, descended over major cities. From New York to Tokyo, from London to Johannesburg, humanity watched in awe and fear. The Accelerians had arrived. The President of the United States, Jonathan Reeves, stood in the White House's Situation Room, staring at the live broadcast. The ships hovered silently, emitting no sign of hostility. Moments later, a voice, calm and strangely human-like, echoed through every screen and radio across the planet. Humans of Earth, we are the Accelerians. We come in peace. People sighed in relief. The aliens were not attacking, but that relief didn't last long. The first Accelerian delegation landed on the White House lawn. They were tall, thin creatures with metallic blue skin and large black eyes. They wore robes that shimmered as they moved. Their leader, called Ambassador Turek, stepped forward and extended a long-fingered hand to President Reeves. "We admire your progress," Turek said, "but we have observed your recklessness. Your weapons are too dangerous. Your technology is unstable. Your wars are endless. We cannot allow you to continue unchecked." President Reeves frowned. "What are you saying?" Turek's voice was firm. "We are here to help, to guide, to restrict." The world watched in shock as the Accelerians announced a series of restrictions. Space travel, banned. Nuclear power, forbidden. Advanced scientific research, limited. They claimed it was for humanity's safety, that humans were not ready for the responsibility of great power. Some world leaders protested, but the Accelerians were firm. Their ships were too powerful, their technology too advanced. Any resistance would be crushed. The United Nations had no choice but to comply. Months passed, and life on Earth changed. Scientists were forced to shut down major research projects. Space programs were dismantled. Factories were repurposed. The Accelerians monitored everything, ensuring humanity followed the rules. Dr. Emily Carter, a brilliant scientist from California, sat in her dimly lit office, staring at the blank screen of her computer. Her research on new energy sources had been deemed too dangerous. All her work was erased. The frustration boiled inside her. A knock at her door made her turn. It was Mike Dawson, an old friend and an experienced engineer. He had the same look of frustration in his eyes. "This isn't right," Mike said, sitting down. "They've caged us." Emily nodded. "We're supposed to be growing, discovering. But now, we're stuck." Mike leaned in, lowering his voice. "What if we fight back? Not with weapons, with ideas, with science." Emily's eyes widened. "You mean, work in secret?" Mike nodded. "The Accelerians think they know everything, but they don't understand human stubbornness. If they won't let us move forward, we'll find our own way." Deep underground, hidden beneath an old factory, a secret team began to form. Scientists, engineers, and even some military officers joined together. They shared one goal: to bypass the Accelerian restrictions without being caught. Daniel Hayes, a former astronaut, was one of them. He had once dreamed of leading humanity's first mission to Mars. Now his dream was crushed, but he wasn't ready to give up. "We find loopholes," he told the group. "The Accelerians banned space travel using rockets. Fine, but what if we build something else? What if we use old, forgotten technologies they don't care about?" Emily's mind raced. "Steam engines, combustion engines. There are ways. We just have to be clever." Mike grinned. "Then let's get to work." As the Accelerians watched over Earth, believing they had won, humanity's greatest minds prepared for their biggest challenge yet. The fight was not over. It had only just begun. Months passed since the Accelerians placed their restrictions on humanity. The world had changed. Science and technology had slowed down, space programs had been shut down, and humans were forced to obey. The Accelerians watched everything. They had eyes in the sky, scanning for any signs of rebellion. But deep underground, in a hidden laboratory beneath an old steel factory, a group of humans worked in secret. They refused to be controlled. They called themselves the Resistance. Dr. Emily Carter sat at a large wooden table, surrounded by scientists, engineers, and military officers. Mike Dawson, the brilliant engineer, stood beside her, holding a blueprint in his hands. Daniel Hayes, the former astronaut, leaned against the wall with his arms crossed, listening carefully. "We have to be smart," Emily said. "The Accelarians expect us to fight with weapons, but that's not our plan. We fight with science." Mike laid the blueprint on the table. "This is a design for an old propulsion system. It's not as advanced as rockets, but it works. The Accelarians banned space travel, but they didn't say anything about older technologies." Daniel stepped forward. "So we're going to build a ship under their noses?" Emily nodded. "Yes, a ship they won't see coming." The Resistance worked in the shadows. They used old, forgotten materials to build their hidden project. The Accelarians monitored computers and modern machinery, so the team used manual tools, welding metal with their own hands. Mike and his engineers worked on the propulsion system. They used steam engines, jet turbines, and combustion engines, technologies the Accelarians considered outdated. But what the aliens didn't know was that humans had a talent for making the old new again. Daniel and a group of pilots trained in a secret underground chamber. They practiced using flight simulators powered by simple mechanical systems instead of digital computers. If they couldn't use modern technology, they would return to the basics. Emily led a team of scientists studying energy sources. They had to find a way to power the ship without being detected. After weeks of experiments, they discovered a method to hide energy signals by disguising them as natural Earth radiation. "We're doing it," Emily whispered to Mike one evening as they stood near a half-built ship in the underground hangar. "We're actually doing it." Mike grinned. "The Accelarians think they've made us weak. They have no idea what humans can do when we refuse to give up." But the Accelarians were not fools. They had noticed strange activity in certain areas. Turak, the alien ambassador, stood inside his massive floating ship, watching a holographic map of Earth. Red markers blinked in locations where unusual energy readings had appeared. "Humans are stubborn," Turak said to his second-in-command, Zalith. "They will not accept our rules so easily." Zalith's black eyes narrowed. "Shall we increase surveillance?" Turak nodded. "Yes, and if they are breaking our laws, we will remind them who is in control." The next morning, Silarian drones scanned cities, towns, and countryside. They searched for secret operations, hidden labs, anything that looked suspicious. The Resistance had to be careful. One mistake, and everything would be lost. Late one night, Daniel and his team were moving supplies through an underground tunnel when they heard a strange noise, a humming sound, deep and unnatural. Daniel froze. "Drones," he whispered. "Shut off the lights. Now." The team quickly powered down their lanterns and hid behind crates. A small Silarian drone hovered near the entrance of the tunnel, its blue lights scanning the area. Daniel held his breath. If the drone detected them, the Accelarians would send soldiers. After a long, tense moment, the drone beeped and flew away. The team stayed silent for several more minutes before Daniel finally exhaled. "That was too close," one of the scientists whispered. Daniel nodded. "We need to move faster. They're getting suspicious." Back in the underground lab, Emily received an urgent message from Daniel. She gathered everyone in the meeting room. "The Accelarians are increasing their searches," Daniel reported. "We don't have much time." Mike clenched his fists. "Then we need to finish the ship. Fast." Emily looked around the room. Everyone was tired, exhausted from months of secret work. But in their eyes, she saw something stronger than exhaustion: determination. "We've come this far," Emily said. "We won't stop now. We will finish this, and when we do, We will show the Xilarians that humanity does not give up. The group cheered softly, careful not to be too loud. They returned to work, moving faster than ever. They knew the risk. If they failed, they would face the full force of the Xilarians. But if they succeeded, they would prove that humanity was stronger than any restriction. The underground hangar buzzed with quiet urgency. The resistance had spent months working in secrecy, but now time was running out. The Xilarians were growing suspicious, and their drones hovered closer with each passing day. Emily Carter, Mike Dawson, and Daniel Hayes knew that the moment of truth was near. The ship, a strange mix of old and new technology, stood in the center of the hangar. It was large but compact, built for speed and stealth. The engines, based on forgotten propulsion systems, gleamed under the dim light. It wasn't perfect, but it was humanity's best chance. Mike wiped sweat from his forehead as he double-checked the engine. "We're almost there," he said. "One last test, and she's ready to fly." Emily nodded. "Then we have no time to waste. The Xilarians won't wait for us to finish." Meanwhile, in the Xilarian command ship, Ambassador Torek observed the latest surveillance reports. His dark eyes narrowed as he studied the unusual heat signatures underground. "Humans are resourceful," he muttered, "but they do not understand what they are up against." Zaleth, his second-in-command, stepped forward. "Shall we send the enforcers?" Torak shook his head. "Not yet. We will give them a chance to stop on their own. If they continue, we will remind them of our power." He pressed a button, sending a message across every screen on Earth. "People of Earth," the alien's voice echoed, "we have given you guidance. We have given you rules to keep you safe. But some of you refuse to listen. You have one last chance to surrender your rebellious activities. If you do not, we will be forced to act." The message sent waves of fear across the world. Some believed surrender was the only option. But in the underground base, the resistance refused to be shaken. "They're trying to scare us," Daniel said. "That means we're getting close." Emily nodded. "Then we need to move now. We launch tonight." The team scrambled into action. Final preparations were made. Supplies were loaded onto the ship. The pilots ran last-minute drills. Mike gave the engine one last look. It's now or never. Emily stood before the team. "We've come too far to stop now. We are fighting for humanity's right to grow, to explore, to be free. The Xilarians think they can control us, but they are wrong." She looked at Daniel. "Are you ready?" Daniel grinned. "Born ready." The countdown began. But the Xilarians were not waiting. As the ship powered up, alarms blared. Drones had detected the energy surge. Within minutes, Xilarian enforcers descended from the sky, their sleek ships surrounding the base. Torak's voice echoed again. "We warned you." Explosions shook the underground facility as Xilarians fired energy blasts at the entrance. The resistance scrambled to defend themselves. Bullets were useless against the alien armor, but the humans used smoke bombs and old electromagnetic pulses to disable some of the drones. Emily ran to the ship. "We have to go. Now." Daniel and the pilots jumped into their seats. The engines roared to life. Mike slammed his hand on the ignition switch. The ship shook. The roof above them began to collapse as the Xilarians fired. "Go, go, go," Emily shouted. With a deafening roar, the ship blasted upward, breaking through the crumbling hangar. They were in the air, but the battle was just beginning. The ship tore through the night sky, leaving behind the burning remains of the resistance base. The Xilarians were in pursuit. Their sleek black ships, faster and more advanced, closed in quickly. Emily Carter, gripping the control panel, felt her heart pound. This was it, the moment they had prepared for. Daniel Hayes, in the pilot's seat, twisted the controls hard to the right. "Hold on," he shouted as the ship swerved, dodging a blast of blue energy from the Xilarian fighters. Mike Dawson, stationed at the weapons panel, cursed under his breath. "We need more firepower." Emily scanned the dashboard. Their ship was built for stealth and speed, not combat. But they weren't defenseless. "Use the electromagnetic pulse," she ordered. Mike activated the EMP. A wave of energy pulsed outward, disabling 2 Xilarian ships. But there were more. Dozens more. "They're not giving up," Daniel gritted his teeth. "We need to go faster." Emily nodded. "Push the engine to full power." Mike hesitated. "The engine isn't stable yet." "We don't have a choice," Emily cut in. "Do it." Mike slammed his hand on the engine booster. The ship jolted forward with a sudden burst of speed. The G-force pressed them into their seats. The stars outside became streaks of light as they pushed toward the upper atmosphere. In the Xilarian command ship, Ambassador Torek watched the chase unfold. His black eyes narrowed. "They are more persistent than I expected." Veleth, standing beside him, clenched his fists. "Shall we destroy them?" Torek shook his head. "Not yet. I want them alive. Let them think they have a chance." The ship trembled as it entered the edges of space. But the Xilarians weren't far behind. Their ships adapted quickly, closing the distance. "We won't outrun them," Daniel said. "We need a plan." Emily's mind raced. Then she saw it, a massive asteroid field ahead. A chaotic maze of tumbling rocks, some as small as pebbles, others as large as mountains. "We're going in there," she pointed. Mike's eyes widened. "Are you insane?" Daniel grinned. "I love it." The ship plunged into the asteroid field. Rocks spun dangerously close. Daniel twisted and rolled the ship, narrowly dodging collisions. The Xilarians followed, but their larger ships struggled with the tight turns. One enemy fighter clipped an asteroid and exploded. Another swerved too late and was crushed between 2 massive rocks. "We're losing them." Mike cheered. Emily focused on the radar. "Not enough. The main warship is still behind us." Then she saw something else, a large asteroid, hollowed out like a cave. An idea formed in her mind. "Head for that asteroid," she pointed. "We're going to hide." Daniel maneuvered toward the massive rock, sliding the ship inside just as another blast from the Xilarians nearly struck them. Darkness swallowed them whole. Silence filled the cockpit. The only sounds were the heavy breaths of the crew. Outside, the enemy ship searched, scanning the asteroid field, but the Resistance's ship remained hidden. Minutes passed, then more. The tension was unbearable. Finally, the Xilarians seemed to give up. Their ships moved away, vanishing into the blackness of space. Daniel exhaled. That was too close. Emily nodded. "But we're still here." Mike wiped his forehead. "And now what? We can't stay hidden forever." Emily looked out into the vast emptiness of space. Their mission wasn't over yet. They had to make it further. They had to find a way to strike back. "The real fight is just beginning," she said. The asteroid field remained eerily silent as the Resistance ship lay hidden within the massive rock's hollow interior. The crew sat in tense silence, listening for any signs of the Xilarians. Emily Carter kept her eyes fixed on the radar, watching the enemy ships retreat into the vastness of space. Mike Dawson exhaled heavily. "We bought ourselves some time, but they'll be back." Daniel Hayes, still gripping the controls, nodded. "Then we need to act before they do." Emily stood. "We can't keep running. We have to hit them where it hurts." Mike frowned. "And where exactly is that?" Emily tapped on the control screen, bringing up a map of the Xilarian command ship. "Right here, the power core. If we destroy it, their entire operation on Earth will collapse." Daniel let out a low whistle. "That's a suicide mission." Emily's expression was firm. "Then it's a good thing we have nothing left to lose." On the Xilarian warship, Ambassador Torek was not fooled. He sat in his command chair, studying the display before him. "They are not running," he muttered. "They are planning." Zaleth, standing beside him, sneered. "Shall we prepare for their attack?" Torek's lips curled into a dark smile. Let them come. They will find only their own destruction. Back in the asteroid, the Resistance prepared for their boldest move yet. The ship's weapons were loaded with every bit of firepower they had left. Their shields were at maximum capacity. The engines hummed, waiting to be unleashed. Emily stood before the crew. This is it. If we succeed, we cripple the Xilarians and give humanity a fighting chance. If we fail, well, at least we go down fighting. A heavy silence fell over the room. Then Daniel grinned. Sounds like fun. Mike smirked. Let's give them hell. Emily nodded. Then let's move. The ship roared out of the asteroid and into open space, heading straight for the Xilarian warship. Alarms blared across the Xilarian vessel as the Resistance ship charged forward. The enemy fleet scrambled to respond, but they had not expected such a direct attack. Hold steady, Emily commanded as blue energy blasts streaked past them. Daniel weaved through the chaos, dodging explosions as best he could. Mike fired back, taking down enemy ships one by one, but there were too many. We're not gonna make it, Mike yelled. Emily gritted her teeth. Yes, we are. Aim for the docking bay. Daniel pushed the ship to its limit, hurtling toward the Xilarian warship. With a final burst of speed, they crashed through the bay doors, sliding across the hangar floor. The crew stumbled out, weapons raised. Xilarian guards surrounded them instantly. Torek stepped forward, calm and composed. Foolish humans, you believe you can destroy us. Emily met his gaze without fear. We don't believe. We know. At that moment, Mike pressed a detonator. Small explosives, planted as they landed, erupted throughout the hangar. The Xilarian guards were thrown into disarray. Move, Emily shouted. The crew sprinted toward the power core, fighting their way through enemy lines. Blasts of energy and bullets filled the air. Daniel took down 2 Xilarians with quick shots, while Mike covered their backs. Finally, they reached the core chamber. The massive energy sphere pulsed with raw power. Emily pulled out the last explosive charge. This is for Earth, she whispered, attaching it to the core. Torek's voice echoed behind them. You will not leave this place alive. Emily turned to see him standing there, weapon in hand. She smiled. Neither will you. The explosion ripped through the ship, sending shockwaves across space. The Resistance's ship, barely making it out, was thrown by the blast. As they looked back, they saw the Xilarian warship crumble, breaking apart in a blinding light. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Mike let out a laugh. We did it. Emily exhaled. It's not over yet, but we just gave humanity a chance. As they drifted through space, Earth below began to rise in defiance. Humanity had won its first battle, but the war was just beginning.